And greetings. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. Looking forward to the Deace Group here. We've got a couple of special guests lined up. No Todd Erzen today. We will tell you who that is here momentarily. We have a Feedback Friday coming your way next hour as well. We are brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. Yet another that could never happen here happened here a couple of times. Basically, you found out what happens when there are Category 5 hurricanes and Ron DeSantis is not your governor. That's kind of what you found out. And sadly, the people of North Carolina are still finding that out as we speak. So another reason why you want to make sure that you just have a backup of some of the most venerable medications ever, just in case they get the ivermectin treatment right when you need them, as ivermectin did. By the way, you can even add ivermectin to the Jace case that I'm telling you about right now, whether it's doxycycline, which I just had to use to beat MRSA 2.0, whether it's amoxicillin and more. You can get all of the Jace case, five of some of the greatest antibiotics ever discovered by humanity. And you can expand your Jace case as well to make sure that whatever your particular needs need to be, they can take care of that for you. They've got an expanding menu and repertoire of medications. I can think if you've got elderly loved ones in particular, if they're on Medicaid, guys, or Medicare, they are total wards of the state at this point. And you want to make sure that they have the peace of mind, and so that you do too, they have the medications that they need. And so this isn't just a product, man, it's a public service. Go to jace.com, Jase, for jace.com for Jace Medical, and then use the code DACE at checkout for the discount at jace.com. Speaking of discount codes, if you go to blazeelection.com/Dace today, you'll get the biggest discount we've ever offered on a Blaze TV subscription, $40 off your annual subscription so that you are with us for our election night coverage, which will include yours truly and a cast of many other above averages. We are like Lake Wobegon. Everybody's a little above average here at the Blaze. All right, so $40 off your annual subscription so you don't miss a moment of either celebration or meltdown, depending on the outcome. I help anchor the last two Blaze election nights in 2022. I was nearly exiled to Siberia by Glenn Beck, and Jason Whitlock nearly committed a felony against Michael Malice, if not multiples. In 2020, I just lost my damn mind watching what was going on that election night, okay? And got the entire Blaze channel defunded by Facebook. So now that I say this, Aaron, why the hell are they bringing me back again? Okay, I mean, I'm a freaking curse. All right, on election night. Why are they flying me back down there for this next week?
It's a good question. We're going to find out.
I mean, now that I'm verbal processing all of this, I'm like, whose terrible idea was it to include me again? All right, but blazeelection.com/Dace is where you can go for $40 off your subscription. And with that, with no Todd, we've got two guest panelists joining us today. Of course, our good friend and colleague, Daniel Horowitz, who will also be joining us for Blaze election night coverage down there in Dallas as we say hello to him, as well as an old friend of mine who's been on here with us before. He worked as one of the communications directors for the Trump White House and the Trump campaign in 2020. He is actually joining us from the Trump bus, or at least Trump bus adjacent outside of Philly right now. Our good friend Hogan Gidley. Good to see you first and foremost, Hogan. How are you?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted. There you go. The dreaded mute button. The Zoom mute button.
See, they're both on the same.
There it is. There you go.
That was China. That wasn't me. That was China. Listen, we're out in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia. It's been amazing so far. Huge crowds. People are fired up. And it's always good to get out on the trail, right, and actually talk to real people. You understand this in Iowa, and you get a sense of kind of what they're thinking, what they're doing. But I tell you, when we ask them, have you voted? Every single hand goes up. And then we're asking what they're doing with the rest of the time. And they say they're going to get more people to vote. And so hopefully that trend continues.
No question about it. All right. So it'll be good to get Hogan's perspective on the ground in between you and me, Daniel Horowitz. Good to have you with us on the Deace Group. I think, is this the first time we've ever had you on here for this, Daniel, over the years? I believe it is.
It's been ages, and it's definitely the first time I'm going down to Dallas. You think it's crazy they're bringing you back. Well, that's because they're bringing me down there. who knows what's going to happen?
I guess you have to be there so that I'm not the person everybody hates at the end of the night. Maybe it has to be you. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. So on a second thought, I'm glad you're coming because now I won't be the most hated man at the end of the night. Thank you. All right. Let's get to it. It is time for the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with issue 1. Bleep, Lord Nefarious says.
How is she going to find common ground with people who supported Donald Trump, someone she calls a wannabe dictator and a petty tyrant?
Well, good morning, George. Yeah, the vice president's rhetoric is the rhetoric that a president of the United States gives.
Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is just supporters.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
I think J.D. Vance has mommy issues. And it's been fascinating for me to watch the way this has played out on the campaign trail. And because of those issues, he has subjected women across this country to all his bad ideas and all his bad policy.
When you discuss your plans, they come back and ask, well, why haven't you done it already?
Well, I'm not president.
You're vice president.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm going to tell you what I'm doing as president when I have the ability then to do what I know based on my experience is a new approach that is about building on the good work that has happened. But there's more to do.
Should there be any limits on abortion, including limiting third trimester abortions?
Look, Vice President's been very clear. They're making sure that we restore the right of Roe versus Wade, making sure that women and their health care providers, because these services are health care.
Should there be a federal third trimester abortion ban?
Look, well, I'm going to go back again. Roe was very clear on what they did. We want the restoration of Roe, and that's the position we're taking. Donald Trump has descended into madness over the last few weeks. And I think some of you don't miss on this. Go do your Google on this. Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
They did not struggle, sacrifice, and lay down their lives only to see us cede our fundamental freedoms. They didn't do that only to see us submit to the will of another petty tyrant.
You know, if kids are hungry in school, what that does to brain and learning, you're not going to learn to read. So if you're talking about learning to read and closing gaps, then you better take away the barriers for that. If that's tampons, then that's tampons.
12,000 jobs, that's a pretty big slowdown.
There were a couple of anomalies in the prior months, but the overall picture of the economy remains strong.
Indeed it does. All right, let us begin. First question, Daniel Horowitz, I'm going to go to you. What was the most vile thing that you just witnessed and were subjected to, and why?
So normally that's a very tough question because Aaron does such a good job putting together such degenerate trash there. But this week is easy. It's easy. And I'm going to tell you very clearly, there is one that stands out above all of them. Most of that stuff, look, we've had since Jefferson and Adams very acerbic rhetoric right before an election, each one, dehumanizing the other side. And the left with the tampons and abortion, unfortunately, that's been around for a while and they've just gotten crazier. But there is one story there, one picture there that exemplifies that this is not just another election, but we cannot share a country together. And you know what that is. That is we're not attacking a political opponent or even an adult, but a grown woman yelling at a kid in a stroller because the father's a Trump supporter. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother level. And we've talked about this with COVID. We saw, I had this where someone would go over to my kid and yell at them for not wearing a mask, or a man would belligerently come up in front of my wife and demand she wear a mask. Yeah, I wasn't there. Otherwise, I'd be in jail now. things that were never socially acceptable. That is why we cannot share a country with these people.
To that end, Daniel, of course, it was trick or treat last night, and I've got the only Trump sign on my street. There now actually are a couple more Trump signs in my Iowa caucus precinct. For the longest time, I had the only one going back to July, but I have the only one on my street, and there are 3 Walls Harris signs. We watched. Anastasia and her husband came over so that Autumn could see the kids in the costumes come to the door. We watched for 2 hours numerous families totally bypass our house. And when we saw the first one, it kind of it flummoxed me a little bit. And Anna saw the look on my face, and my oldest daughter said, "You guys, it's the Trump sign in your yard. That's why." And then we watched over the next 2 hours. We watched numerous families go to every house with the light on our street, except for ours. So that's kind of what we're talking about there when we say you can't share a country with that. It's because they're letting you know they're not going to share it with you. That's what they're letting you know. Hogan Gidley, what about you? What was it that you found the most revolting thing in Aaron's montage?
Yeah, again, it's such a good compilation of how horrible the left has gotten and the war they've really waged on so many Americans just simply for disagreeing with them politically. You know, Steve, we've been vilified, called subhuman for our positions on life or marriage or whatever it may be for decades in this country. This is nothing new. So when you see the Hitler and the Nazi references obviously attacking us, calling us those things, and the left is very good at projection. They always accuse us of doing the thing they're guilty of actually doing. Mm-hmm. Right? Kamala Harris out there saying Donald Trump's going to jail his political opponents. You're literally trying to put him in jail with multiple cases right now. So this is obviously occurring. But listen, the Hitler stuff we know has been they've been talking about this for years. Candidates past. We've gone from bitter clingers to God and guns to back to Hitler. Then it was deplorables and irredeemables. Then back to Hitler. Now it's garbage. Now Mark Cuban, the quote he said about none of the smart women, strong women around Donald Trump, which is insane, as you well know. But I have to agree with Horowitz here. I saw that woman screaming at that child in that stroller, and I thought, their war on children's been pretty obvious now for a long time, as we know, with no restrictions on abortion. Everybody in the U.S. Senate on the Democrat side but one voted for a bill that would allow abortion anytime, anywhere, any place, for any reason up until the moment of birth, and they wanted you to pay for it. Their position is well known. And finally, as you begin to ask Kamala Harris and Tim Walz their stance on this, 90% of the people in this country disagree with that policy of abortion up until the moment of birth. And so they hid behind the platitudes of, I just want to return to Roe v. Wade. But when you press them on the details, that, of course, is where the devil is. And you realize their extreme position. Sadly, Republicans kept their mouth shut after Roe v. Wade was overturned. 68% of Americans after that ruling believed that there were no more abortions allowed in the United States. So talk about your all-time successful misinformation and disinformation campaigns, by the way. But that video kind of encapsulated to me really their disdain for life, for children, for norms, for decorum, for kindness, for decency. And it just was really, really one of those most offensive things I've seen in politics in a long time. And I've seen a lot of them.
Aaron, wow.
Couple of dishonorable mentions. I just want to reiterate the Mark Cuban comment. In this, I mean, I've been as critical of Donald Trump as anybody who hasn't lost their soul to the process. So I hope this packs more of a wallop. That's basically the only type of woman that Donald Trump, with very few exceptions, surrounds himself with, is smart, capable, and as a bonus, attractive women as well. So that is just the ultimate case of projection. Another dishonorable mention, another ultimate case of projection as well. Whoever the hell that was on CNN talking about Vance having mommy issues. She's been clean and sober for 10 years now. You can see the love that exudes from J.D. Vance when he talks about his mom. That is just totally way out of, that's 10 yards late hit, out of bounds, personal foul there. So 2 dishonorable mentions, but I want to bring up, kind of in the same dovetail vein as what Hogan and Daniel were talking about there, a very insidious and subtle shift in some of the ways that the politicians now over on their side are talking about the opposing side. Now, it wasn't so subtle when Joe Biden called half the country garbage, but it was in the lead up to that. You notice the difference in pronouns. Usually when they're talking about Nazi, Hitler, they're talking about in the pronouns of he. Donald Trump is this. You heard Tim Walz there, and there were a couple of other examples of this as well. Kamala Harris said it in her closing argument at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., kind of using the same types of pronouns. They.
Wow.
Yeah. We're going from, hey, don't miss him next time, to don't miss them next time. They are preemptively justifying whatever comes next. And I think that's a really subtle shift, but a really insidious, important
phenomenal
thing.
Observation. Daniel, go ahead.
No, and Aaron, just to sew up that segment, that point, I think that we're all honing in on from that woman is that, again, we've had hatred in this country for a long time, and let's be honest, it's now mutual. I mean, we feel the same way, but here's the difference. There's not a single one of us that believes that because they believe in whatever they believe in that we dislike, that we need to criminally prosecute and take away their liberties and potentially even life. So, for example, I get back to that poll we all talked about at the time. There were several of them with COVID, that if you didn't get the COVID shot, remember about half the Democrat base,
it was like 44% or something.
44% said you belong in prison. Certainly majority felt your rights should be taken away, but 44% said you belong in prison. None of us believe that. As much as, I want to make red states citadel and do our stuff, but none of us are suggesting that we literally take away their rights personally on an individual level because they believe in things we hate.
Right. And
real quick. Go ahead.
Hogan. Yeah. And remember, the polling also shows Republicans are way more likely to be welcoming or have Democrat friends, whereas Democrats are like 20% of them will agree to have a Republican friend. It shows you at the end of the day, the common thread was, well, we're all Americans, we disagree, et cetera, et cetera. Their common thread is they think we're evil now. So anything we do, they believe
it's
they
justified.
Can attack us in the way they attack us because it's justified because of evilness. It's insane.
Let's get to the exit question here. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds that any of us men here would choose the same whoopee music as Tim Walz when he reportedly chose the very gay George Michael as the background music to romance a Chinese communist official, and 10 being the odds Lindsey Graham wouldn't need any background music to romance Tim Walz. Rank this week's level of total depravity. Hogan, you had to know you were not coming on this show without a blast across the bow of your own state's senator that you've subjected the entire damn country to for 30 years. You knew you were not escaping that, and you knew I was going to go really low when you came on. You had to know I was going to go really low with it, too, and I did.
Yeah, when they go low, you go lower. Great job, Steve. But wait, you're asking me which is more depraved?
Yeah, a scale of 1 to 10, how depraved is what Aaron put together? How depraved is it?
Oh, gosh, a 10. It's absolutely horrible. This kind of stuff has grown and festered in this country now for a long time. You're seeing it boil over. They just don't like the people in America having a say-so. They don't like us having a voice. They want to be the ones to tell us how to act. I mean, they literally tried to utilize OSHA, which is the weirdest agency on the planet, to force Americans to get a vaccine. It's inconceivable the way they operate and the way they act toward us. Yeah. 10.
Daniel, where are you at?
I mean, there hasn't been a week recently that I haven't been at a 10. I'll say it will become an 11 if Lindsey Graham himself lands himself a job in the Trump administration.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, no. Daniel saw I took a shot, so Aaron's like, I think it's safe for me to take one now. Go ahead, Aaron, go ahead.
10. I'm out. I'm tapping out. 10.
All right, let's get to issue 2. Childless Cat Ladies versus American Garbage.
In one corner, we have the Childless Cat Lady. And in the other corner, we have American Garbage.
If you have a permanent class of low-wage serfs, many of whom don't even speak English, that destroys the citizenship ethos that makes our democracy possible in the first place. These people don't care because they want the cheap labor. I care because I love my country.
A lot of people look at America more as a financial opportunity than a country.
And it's not. It can't be that. Right? American citizenship cannot just be a bunch of people who work and make financial transactions with one another. You don't go and fight wars because like the guy down the street makes a lot of money trading derivatives on Wall Street, right? You go and fight wars if you have a nation that you believe in. And importantly, if you have faith that your leaders are only going to send you to fight a war when they have to. Globalization, it's been very good for rich people in rich countries, and it's been very good for poor people in poor countries. It's been extraordinarily bad for poor people and middle-class people in rich countries, right? And in some ways, the whole Donald Trump movement is a rebellion against, okay, well, some people have benefited from this. Like some people benefited when my steel mill, the steel mill that employed my grandfather for 40 years, when it went from 10,000 jobs to 1,800 jobs, right? But it wasn't the people that I grew up around, and it wasn't our families, and it wasn't the moms and dads who got divorced because the dad usually, but sometimes the mom lost a stable middle class wage. I mean, again, Republicans are like, we're supposed to be the party of family and of family values. You know what's really bad for family values? When thousands of people at the drop of a hat lose a good middle class wage, right? That's not good for family values. That destroys families. And again, we can do so much better, but we've got to get away from this failed consensus of the last 40 years.
That was something, Aaron. I had not seen that clip before. So, guys, I chose this theme because I kind of think this election is, you know, in every cycle, you know, we can put different labels on it, or there's different moments that kind of encapsulate what a particular election is about. And as we were just talking, these two irreconcilable cultures now trying to share this landmass called America. And I've at my gym, I've seen this woman come and work out ever since JD Vance was put on the ticket. I've seen this woman come and work out numerous times with a T-shirt that says "Childless Cat Lady" on it, just owning the labeling of her opposition. Similar to whether it's Megyn Kelly wearing a trash bag for Halloween last night and posting it on, and I've got emails in my inbox from people who wore trash bags for when they took their kids trick-or-treating around the country last night. All right. Owning, again, the stigma from the other side. You do that to me when you are at that irreconcilable clash now where you wear, like me yesterday, wearing the badge of honor of the New York Times, accusing me of being one of the worst dispensers of misinformation in the United States. Okay? I'm going to own that, given what they represent. They're the enemy. So I'm happy to be, to have them over my target. Do you guys think that is an adequate description, really, of these two Americas? Childless cat ladies and or people that are willing to let them make all their decisions for them? Or American garbage, which is kind of this, wide coalition of varying patriotic beliefs and instincts, but that maybe is the manifestation of the two sides here. Aaron, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I thought I chose that clip because I think in 90 seconds or less, it really encapsulates to the best of anybody's ability really what the instinct behind MAGA truly is. It's, do we have a country worth fighting for or not? And I think J.D. Vance brilliantly summed that up there. But I think if you want to simplify the factions at play, I don't think there's any better way to do so. When your opponents tell you who they are and own it, believe them. Mm-hmm. Believe them. Now, they mean, of course, and they've bastardized the childless cat lady comment from J.D. Vance to smithereens. The way they mean it is a lot different than the way that J.D. Vance meant it, which is basically we need to give agency to people who are actually doing the living, breathing, paying taxes, and dying around here. We need to give them the most agency in their government. That was the meaning of that comment. They've taken it to mean something completely else, which is, yeah, sure, I'm just going to live for myself, and that's okay. I'm going to live for myself and my cats, and what are you going to do about it? I'm speaking now. That's basically the encapsulation of the impetus, the spirit behind the two factions in this country, as I see it currently. And basically, like I said, just underscoring MAGA. MAGA is basically answering the question: do you want to have a country worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for? That's basically what J.D. Vance is saying in that clip.
Hogan, what do you think?
Well, first of all, you talked about misinformation. Without misinformation, there would be no newspapers or television shows. It's literally their business model. They thrive and survive on misinformation. So it was really quite rich when they were talking about you and misinformation, which, of course, you're not part of. But nonetheless, Yeah, I think it's an accurate description. However, I do believe more people fall into the garbage category than the childless cat lady category. And I think it absolutely correct here. The bastardization of what Vance said is a problem, but they're leaning into it. Joe Biden literally called us garbage. So it's way different because that's actually what he thinks about the American people that dare have their own thoughts, their own cares, their own, ideas of who they should vote for and ideas for policies if they differ from him. Do you know how angry they are when they watch us attend a rally or a Madison Square Garden event or a convention where Hulk Hogan from the WWE speaks? Do you know how angry they are that real rural America has somebody up there speaking without their disdain for that population is really, really shocking.
Indeed, it is. Daniel, what do you think?
I mean, what Childless Cat Lady represents is that these guys have never worn themselves on their sleeves as prominently as they have this cycle. I mean, we've seen that. Like Hogan was saying, see, they project on us. They call us garbage. We're not projecting. They own this stuff. I think what it boils down to, and again, this is why I've been into de facto national divorce. I know it angers people because I don't have these quixotic goals that we're going to paint all these blue states red one day. And I mean, we're coming way too late in the game, and God bless us if we're able to even save what should be red America. But I know you have Dale Wilcox on a lot from Institute for Family Studies. He's put out a lot of good data recently. And you see it all boils down to family. Everything, whether it's the fertility rates he had, the family structure, that's really what it is. It's all a matter of that. This is much worse than the Civil War. Slavery was a big issue, but they disagreed over one issue. Fundamentally, they lived the same lifestyles. You go back to, I used to grow up and see all the time when I was growing up as a kid, split marriages, you had the wife and the husband would cancel each other out. You fundamentally live the same. This guy wanted higher taxes, lower taxes. We're at the point where we disagree about who we are as humanity. Yep. I mean, I think, and it's not, I want to make it clear, it's not just the childless cat lady, living the gay lifestyle in the high-rise 15-minute city where you don't own a car, where, the kind of the stereotypical urban liberal white. But it was also born out, I want to bring this into our conversation.
We've got a minute, so go ahead.
It's the ad that Kamala put out about the married couples and, the
wife subverts the husband. Yes.
Those, even when they're not gay marriages, they are gay marriages because they have the men who act feminine, the women who act masculine. They're all dysregulated. They're all at war with each other. They don't even know who they are. Like, none of us have our marriages like that. It's all disharmony. Yep. That is something that, again, we cannot live together with.
That's a homily right there. Exit question: win or lose on Tuesday? J.D. Vance will be a force to be reckoned with in the 2028 GOP presidential primary if we're not all in prison by then.
Absolutely.
Aaron.
Absolutely.
Hogan.
He'll be a force because he's got the White House behind him, but there are others out there who definitely want to make a run at this.
Daniel.
If Trump becomes president, I mean, I say this with trepidation having Hogan here. I do think, and this is no matter who would have won the primary nomination, it's going to be very tough economically, and that's going to be tough to repeat in 2028. I just believe that. If Trump loses, I definitely think he'll be a force. But again, being on the losing side of a presidential ticket will weaken his appeal a little bit, but he'll definitely be a force.
Yeah. The point you make about the economy, we've got a hard break here in 30 seconds. So let me just say this, Daniel or Hogan, I hope the guys that you're on that bus with understand that if you all win, the economy is the next COVID crisis. They're going to everything they're doing to prop this whole thing up. They're going to drop that entire damn thing in his lap and say, now you got to do all our draconian measures to fix this thing. I hope you guys, the people you're on that bus with, know that is coming about 5 minutes after the inaugural. I hope they know that. Okay, we'll come back.
They do, and I'm with some congressmen, and they know.
Good. All right, we'll come back. More of the Deace Group here in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, we are powered by our friends over at Constitution Wealth. Do not let those retirement dollars, those portfolio dollars that you have worked a lifetime to build, do not let them be used against your value system, but instead put them to work as your financial fortress. And that's what so many of our loyal listeners and viewers here at the Steve Deace Show have already done by reaching out to Constitution Wealth, the Patriot's Choice in Wealth Management. And if you have yet to do so, here's how they can help you to empower you to take a stand. Number one, have you thought about if you are a shareholder, you could be using your status as a proxy vote to influence corporations the other way. You can do that as well. That gives you an agency. That gives you a platform. They can also help to divest you from ESG and DEI and CEI and DIE and other woke pagan schemes as well, from corporations that are importing and injecting the rot gut into our culture and more. And also, as an added benefit, you're going to help them build a parallel economy by working with an investment firm composed of professionals who are patriots just like you. So take action now. Visit constitutionwealth.com/Blaze and sign up for a free consultation today. That's constitutionwealth.com/Blaze. Again, constitutionwealth.com/Blaze. All right, for issue 3, we don't have an intro for this issue. Instead, what we're going to do here, because Daniel and I get paid to give political analysis, Hogan Gidley gets paid to shape political analysis. All right. And so we've got him sitting there in the jury box. All right. And what Daniel and I are going to do is unroll each of our final election predictions for both the president and for the Senate. And I will start, and I want to get Hogan's reaction. All right. And so we're going to do it by showing our presidential and Senate maps. All right. So let's start with my presidential map. This is what I believe whenever they get done counting the votes, whenever that will be. This is what I believe the actual map will be for president. 297 to 241. I do believe for the first time since 1988, the Rust Belt triumvirate will splinter and not all go the same way. On purpose, I tried to take a state that I do think that Trump is trending well in and have it go blue just based off of fortification that exists, and that state is my former home state of Michigan, which if you watched our Sarah Gonzalez's documentary on voter fraud in Michigan, how you are prosecuted for actually trying to stop voter fraud in Michigan now, the one that had us cutting ourselves after we watched it about 6 months ago. So I think Michigan will hold firm in Gretchen Whitmer's bid for the 28 Democratic nomination. I think that Pennsylvania will go red. I think that Kamala should have put Shapiro on the ticket, will be this cycle's why didn't Hillary go to Wisconsin? That will be the lament on their side for the next 4 years. But that is my presidential map. On the Senate side, I actually believe now 52 is the low number that Republicans will end up with. I think that there will be at least one upset in Wisconsin or Arizona on election night. And that Republicans will, I think McCormick will also win. And therefore that'll get Republicans. And then I think is it Hovde up against Tammy Baldwin, who has been polling under. I even know people doing high dollar private polling that have not been able to get Tammy Baldwin above 50% in any of their polling in this cycle all year long. So I think there'll be some coattails there for Trump in Ohio. That's, there's been a lot of talk about how the map has changed. States that are more suburban are tougher for us to win now, like North Carolina and Virginia. On the other hand, there are states like Ohio that are redder than ever, that Trump flipped the other way. I think Bernie Moreno's run a good campaign. And so between his campaign and Trump's coattails there, I think that we'll take that seat away from Sherrod Brown as well. And I think Republicans end up with 54 U.S. senators. So Hogan Gidley, those are my presidential and Senate predictions. On the House side, Daniel and I are pretty much the exact same. We think if Trump wins, then Republicans will have some small majority. If he doesn't, Democrats will have some small majority. So that's why there's not a House map. First of all, House maps look like a mess anyway, so they're tough to look at. So those are our predictions, or my predictions anyway. We'll show you Daniel's in a moment, but Hogan, your reaction to that?
Yeah, I can't quibble with any of it. Obviously, being out on the road in North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, seeing some of these groups out there, feeling some of the fire they have. I think it's interesting, though, that you gave Trump Pennsylvania, but you didn't give him Michigan. Obviously, Michigan really well. We're hearing all kinds of crazy stuff on the ground there in Michigan. But it looked like, if I'm not mistaken, you also gave him Arizona and Nevada. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay, that's big. And I think Trump is trending in those places. The real question becomes the votes we're seeing right now in the trend lines. Are we cannibalizing too much of our same day? Which, of course, we're cannibalizing some. But the people I talk to, the analysts tell me it's a lot of the low propensity voters that usually don't vote. And I'll just say this to summarize. Great picks by you, Steve. But after this is over, regardless of the outcome, we need to get into the RNC and make sure in the next 4 years we have the proper turnout apparatus that can win, because Donald Trump is driving turnout now. No one else can do what he's been able to do, whether it's JD, Sarah Huckabee, or anybody else. So we're going to have to prep for that ground game. But keep going. Sorry.
No, that's good stuff. That's what we wanted to hear. All right, Daniel, walk us through yours. We have his presidential map first, Aaron?
Yep.
All right, let's start your presidential. We'll put them side by side.
Yep.
All right, so Daniel, walk us through your presidential map first.
Okay, so let's start presidential because everything's going to flow downstream from there. I'll start with the map that you're not showing, the House one that I actually did work on it. And here's why I'm starting with that. I got to 219, 216 Republicans. I know districts very well. And I will tell you, I had a very hard time. Like, I could easily see Republicans losing it. I think Republicans losing 9, but flipping 6. So that basically they lost some seats, but, because they technically won 222 last time, it would put them at 219, but it could easily go either way. The point is, this is so doggone close. It is, you put the Senate, the House, the White House together. This could be the closest election we've ever had. The polls are retarded. They're all over the place. They contradict each other. You have elements that seem to indicate, we might be able to take over blue areas, and then a bunch of polls that seem to indicate underperforming in a bunch of red states that I've been watching. So nothing makes sense. We pointed this out all along. So I want to just say I approach this with a lot of humility. I'm pretty black and white, as you well know, on the way things ought to be. But what people actually do, I approach it with a lot of humility. Okay, so presidential map, obviously top line, 270, 268. Everyone's going to hate me. Nightmare scenario. Everyone's in an uproar.
And let me tell you who everybody's going to hate. It's not going to be you. It's going to be the frickin' state of, it's going to be Nebraska Republicans everybody's going to hate if you are correct. And if you're a Nebraska Republican, you're going to need to build a wall around your state. Okay. Yeah. And not be like seen in public. Okay. For like, you're Chernobyl, you're 3 Mile Island. You are a nuclear political wasteland. If your scenario, the only difference between your scenario and mine is you basically think Kamala's going to win Pennsylvania by a point or two. And I think Trump's going to win them by a point or two. That's the only difference in our two maps. Okay. That's it.
And Steve, it could go either way.
Right.
I'm really it's not really a prediction. You put a gun to my head, maybe put out a map. So I put it out. But the bottom line is this: there's 2 competing trends. Let's just go real quickly. I know you don't have much time. 2 competing trends. We all know. On the one hand, Republicans have been losing in really all these swing states, except for North Carolina. They've been bleeding in the legislature, bleeding in the governors, bleeding in the Senate seats, bleeding in the critical state Supreme Court seats, congressional seats from 2016 on. That's undeniable. This is what has happened. Constant losing streak. We've talked about that. Now, a lot of that's driven by there is a lot of bleeding from however you want to call them: white, college educated, suburban, upscale, some independent females. In that cohort of suburbia, we are bleeding, and I'm not seeing signs of that abating. But on the other hand, clearly there is some progress among black voters, more substantial progress among Hispanic voters. There's also a lot of evidence so far in the Sun Belt, but also reverberating possibly in Philly and Detroit and areas like that, of the urban turnout that determine the difference between 2020 and 2016 that Biden enjoyed, however real you think it is, that is down, and that there is real data on that. And that's why on net, I feel when you put those 2 conflicting factors, which I think the polling reflects in the conflict, it benefits him in the Sun Belt. So I'm very bullish on Arizona. Also, you have a lot of net in-migration. The New York Times has a piece on that today, state by state. A lot of California conservatives moved into there in Nevada. I'm pretty sure Nevada, although I could see him losing Nevada despite the good early voting just because their machine there. Who knows what they'll pull. But Nevada's neither here nor there. You put it down to 262, you still got to win one of those other states. Now, I will tell you, a lot of our colleagues think he's going to win Georgia by 5 points. I think it's going to be more like 1.5. I do think it's going to be a lot closer. I think he's favored, lower urban turnout there. So then it's the Rust Belt. I agree with your assessment that I think there's a gap between Michigan and the other two, and that's why I put Wisconsin and Pennsylvania as a different shade. George, at the end of the day, he lost Michigan by 3 points last time, whereas the other ones were a hairline. So my problem with Pennsylvania, it could go either way. My problem is that the balance of where he's benefiting from minorities but bleeding on whites. I'm concerned about Pennsylvania because I've seen data from Scott Perry's Harrisburg-based district, and it seemed to indicate even more bleeding than 2020. So even if turnout is down in Philadelphia, I'm concerned about where to make it up, but I'm not befuddled about that he might be able to do so. And then just Hogue, before you come in, just to sew up, and then my Senate map pretty much just reflects that we'll get Montana. I would just say Ohio's momentum towards being red appears to have stalled out for me from what I'm seeing. There's some Democrat net in-migration there, but I could be wrong. That would be the 52nd seat if I'm wrong.
All right, Hogan, what do you think of Daniel's analysis?
Yeah, well, real quick, I'm at this rally now, so you may hear some people behind me screaming. Your boy Matt Whitaker's out here riling up the crowd right now, Dace. But again, nothing wrong with this map. These scenarios are both plausible. There are a couple things. I'm worried. Look, I'm paid to be nervous, and I'm very nervous. Okay, so that's fine. But understand there's a point you made about the women, and I think we don't know that yet. Obviously, Kamala is down with men. She's down with blacks. She's down with Hispanics. The question becomes, how big is that woman gap? Now, I would say a couple things. One is an issue that we're not really talking about with women is because abortion has taken over the headlines. It's the trans issue. And so a lot of women out there are going around, a single mother, a married woman with daughters playing soccer or daughters in swimming. They're going over the soccer circuits. They're buying the equipment. They're putting in the time that maybe their daughter gets a college scholarship, and then a dude comes along and takes it from her. Those women may not vote for Trump, but they're going to sit back and go, hold on. At the same time, we're all looking for an October surprise. Democrats are saying, wait a minute, it turns out the October surprise was coming from inside the House, because Joe Biden made the garbage comments. That, I don't think, does a thing to persuade an independent voter, because they're still trying to decide whatever. What it does do, though, I think, is motivate either to get out and vote for Trump or stay home and not vote for Kamala. Those people who are marginal Trump voters who go, you know what, I like Trump. I'm worried about all the other stuff that comes along with him. But wait a minute, I'm garbage for thinking about this? No, that's too much. I've got to go out there now and do something about it. I don't know where those margins end up landing at the end of the day, but I think both of your maps are completely plausible. It is interesting, though, Steve, because you're a sports guy, and I don't know if anybody else is on the panel, but I'm sure you guys all watch sports. But it's oftentimes when the prediction by every analyst says, oh, it's going to be, this game's going to come down to a field goal, or it's going to be razor thin. A lot of times those games just turn out to be blowouts, and it's a big nothing. Think of the Super Bowl, for example. I'd be interested to see this because, look, I'm hoping Donald Trump wins in a landslide. I hope he wins the popular vote. I hope he wins the Electoral College. But there's a scenario I see where he could landslide this thing. If that blue wall starts to crack early in the night, it's over. And it's over in a big way. But again, we just don't know because also the campaign outsourced a lot of its get out the vote effort, which is something that we'd never seen before, giving it to people like Elon Musk and Turning Point USA and AFPI or AFW, et cetera. So we don't know if that's operating in the way it should. I'm hearing anecdotes. I'm getting some data back. I'm watching this in real time, and I'm impressed by a lot of it. But also those groups are doing it new for the first time. So where the DNC runs everything out of its headquarters, it does outsource too, but it outsources to unions. And unions are good at this and have been doing it for decades. So a lot of things up in the air, bottom line, both your maps, very plausible, and quite frankly, very probable at this point too.
All right, we've only got 2 minutes left in the hour. So I'm going to combine our kicker topic, issue 4, and our predictions into a forced prediction. All right. Real quick, I want everybody to make what they think has the best chance to be the most shocking individual result of the 2024 election. Aaron, I'll let you start.
I'm not sure if this is shocking anymore, but I think there is a potential that the young male vote could raise a lot of eyebrows. I'm talking younger than even I am, and I'm 31 years old.
So Zoomers you're talking about.
Zoomers, yes.
Okay. Daniel, what's your potential biggest shocking individual result election night?
By now, it's probably not that shocking, but I think Trump will carry Florida by a larger margin than Texas, Alaska, and possibly another red state for the first time in the modern era.
What do you think that does with Amendments 3 and 4 if that happens?
I think they go down. The question is just, for moral victories, could we drive it closer to 50, maybe, under that or one of them? But
I'm going to take 59.9 and call it a night.
I think we're pretty good.
Okay.
I think we're pretty good there.
All right. Hogan, what would be your biggest individual shocking result?
I think the black vote turnout for Trump in cities. I think a lot of the folks who are black in Mississippi and Alabama and states that Trump is going to win may have turned to Trump. And that's kind of one of my concerns from a demographic is, but what about the cities? Are they really going to get out and vote for him in these cities where they've been kind of ingrained to vote for Democrats? I think if what I'm seeing and hearing is correct, that he could have some big turnout numbers in these cities. And remember, right when he was speaking at Madison Square Garden, a poll came out that Kamala's up like 60-30 in New York. If that's the case, it's the worst performance by a Democrat in New York City since '88,
and that reverberates in Philadelphia.
Yeah, correct. And so if that trend line continues, he's going to do well.
Here's how big the thing that both Daniel and Hogan talked about when it comes to urban voting. In 2016, Trump 86% of Trump's margin of victory in Wisconsin was 20,000 blacks that did not vote in 2016 for Hillary, didn't show up to vote in Milwaukee County. They were 20,000 black voters short in Milwaukee County compared to where they were in 2012 under Obama. That was 86% of Trump's margin of victory in the state of Wisconsin. So that's how those swings can be influential. Here's my surprise, and I think it's very possible Kari Lake is going to win on election night. I would have never said that a month ago.
I'm hearing that too.
I think it is very possible. And I was at 25% a week ago. That I think I'd put maybe at 35%. I think she could win on election night. All right. Thank you very much, Hogan. Be safe out there. Daniel, I'll see you Tuesday down in Dallas, all right? Thank you guys both.
Long week. Take care.
Thanks,
you bet.
guys.
We'll come back. Bless. It'll be Feedback Friday next. Stay tuned. And we're back with Hour 2 live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre. Todd Erzin has the day off. And you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Please take advantage of that by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, or Gab. You can also follow @Steve Deace Show on X or Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And again, that's DEACE. Please check out our brand new YouTube channel and subscribe to that as well. After the New York Times put the target on our back there, we're going to need all the help from you on YouTube we can get moving forward with a brand new YouTube page, because the other one, they skunked that because of all the truth we were trying to tell you. So subscribe to the new YouTube channel @Deace Show on YouTube, @Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you love the podcast version of the program, we love you too. And if you wouldn't mind showing your love to the world by leaving a 5-star review, whatever platform you broadcast us through, and then also hit subscribe or on iTunes, follow, and that'll assure that every time we drop one of these new episodes, it drops in your feed every single time. And once again, we appreciate all of you that do those things for us, as well as we appreciate our friends at Home Title Lock who are back here on the show. And when you look at it, a jobs report today that shows only 12,000 jobs were created last month in this economy, not in a third world country, in the United States of America. And when you take away the government jobs, it was what, minus 28,000 or something like that?
If it weren't for government hiring, that's the only thing that kept the jobs report in the black. Think about that.
Yes.
And think about what this is going to be revised to next month or the month after.
Because they've almost all been revised all year long. They've almost all been revised down. Just to put this into context, forecasters were telling their investors they thought the report would be north of 100,000. It was 12,000.
Just a bit outside.
Just a bit outside. Why do I bring that up with home title lock? Because in that kind of a job market, people are going to look for nefarious means to feed their families. One of those nefarious means, scamming your home, because we have another problem here too. The real estate market sucks. NBC News, I could not believe they reported this on the eve of the election. We've been telling you this for the last year. You are paying double or 100% more for a new 30-year mortgage payment now than you were 4 years ago before Joe Biden took office. So we've got these inflated house values. Many of us, though, can't afford to move because a lot of us can't afford to buy or sell a home to move into. So we're sitting on all this equity. Follow me here. Let's connect some dots. You're sitting on all this equity that you can't sell if you wanted to, probably. And the job market is atrocious. Lots of incentives out there for scammers to go after the most important investment most Americans will ever make, and that is their home. Protect your home's title with Home Title Lock's triple lock protection system. It monitors your home's title 24/7. It alerts you if there's any changes to your title at all. It works fast to restore your title if indeed it is pilfered. And no out-of-pocket additional cost if that fraud occurs. And so don't wait until you're a victim. You can get a free 30-day trial and a free title history report when you use the promo code Steve Deace at HomeTitleLock.com. Again, promo code Steve Deace, pardon me, for the free 30 days of protection and the free title report. Promo code Steve Deace when you go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. All right, Aaron, you ready for some Feedback Friday?
You bet.
Let's start with a guy named, uniquely enough, Steve. Different Steve. I've been a listener since the 2020 election. I believe you, Todd, and Aaron do an outstanding job getting your messages across to people. Thank you. As Harrison Butker put forth his views and then doubled down on them to make him the leader in the clubhouse for Man of the Year in the first half of the year. That being said, I'd like to nominate Tony Dungy for making a move here in the second half of the year. Not only did he come out against baby killing, he did it while earning a paycheck from a network that has NBC on it. I'm pretty sure that they were all aware of Dungy's faith and biblical worldview beforehand, but him speaking up about the issue, including at a news conference with DeSantis this week, is something I think NBC probably did not see coming.
Steve, when was the last time we had multiple nominees in the running for Man of the Year in a single year?
And we're not even talking
Harrison
about the guy
Butker,
that took a bullet to the face and then stood up with a bleeding face and screamed, "Fight."
Harrison Butker.
Where's he at in this? Yeah.
Kirk Herbstreit for just coming out and saying, I don't give a about what you think about me. Dudes should not be competing in female athletics. I think there was another one actually in the late part of fall or late part of summer, early part of fall. And now I think you can put Tony Dungy on that list as well. He's always been outspoken, but coming in at this late hour and just being so vocal about this and just outspoken, I put him on the list as well. When was the last time we had multiple legit nominees for Man of the Year? That's a good sign.
For the first time, did you just try to white pill this show? You've worked here since 2015. That has not occurred before. Did you just try to white pill the show?
No. Don't put words in my mouth.
Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah. But I mean, heck.
Don't accuse me of optimism. Now I'm offended.
Yes. Not one to accuse of optimism, but I mean that's a good sign. That we need more. It's the Kobe Bryant gif. More, whatever that gif is. But that's a very good sign, and I think we're actually going to have some debate about this come the end of the year, because I think that's one of the topics on the year-end Deace Group.
It is. This reminds me, by the way, there's another angle to the Tony Dungy thing too. So it's not just that he is speaking out and doing so publicly. By the way, as an aside, even to that aside, he's doing like a verse by verse Bible study on his Twitter account. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
He is doing morning devotionals. They're doing Romans. They think they're just about finished. Actually, he's going chapter by chapter, verse by verse. He's doing biblical devotionals on his Twitter feed every morning. Dungy is. There's another angle to this. One of Dungy's coworkers is a guy named Mike Florio. Heard that name before?
Oh yeah.
So Mike Florio started a platform. It's genius. He basically, to describe it, he took what Matt Drudge made successful, posting links and headlines to other news stories to kind of be the one-stop bookmarking of links.
Yeah, the
aggregator. Right. All right. But he took it a step further. What Florio would do with Pro Football Talk is he would aggregate like Drudge. But then he would like write little summaries of these stories and then his own take on it to give it a personal touch. And Pro Football Talk became a wildly successful sports site with him doing that. And that parlayed him into getting a job at NBC Sports as part of their NFL team. I bring that up in the context of Dungy because I got into it with Mike Florio several years ago. Because Mike Florio was going after Tim Tebow when he was in the NFL for Tebow going and doing an event at Robert Jeffress Church in, is it Texas is Jeffress' church, I believe? I think it is.
Yeah.
And Jeffress was a homophobic bigot. He went after him trying to set the precedent that you can't do this as a player and the NFL should step in and crack down on this. And I went back at Florio and I said, hey, you work every Sunday night with Tony Dungy. He has the exact same views as Tim Tebow. So do you think your coworker Tony Dungy shouldn't have a job at NBC Sports based on your own posting? For that, he blocked me. I may or may not still be blocked. I don't know and don't care. And I had not even thought about it. I don't think you've even heard me bring this up in the years you've been working for me.
No, the dude that you quote tweeted from Fox News also blocked you this week as well.
I did. Who was that?
That was the guy who used to be on Fox News all the time who called Trump a Nazi.
Oh, Larry Sabato?
Yeah,
Saboteur. Yes, yeah. But so Dungy is doing this. Also, with one of his own co-talents with the part of the NBC. By the way, NBC Sunday Night Football is the most watched television show on network TV. It like 60 Minutes was when I was growing up, or Gunsmoke for those of you in the older generation. NBC Sunday Night Football is the most watched TV program on network TV. And Dungy is their star analyst of that. So, he's out on the front lines of the most divisive OG culture war issue of them all. And in a way, he is flipping the proverbial I don't give a care to his own wannabe, accusatory, jackbooted, goose-stepping thug there coworker and Mike Florio. So add that little context to it as well. Got to like that. And you know what? One more thing on Dungy too, Steve, that you brought up. Thank you for this. This is so very important because I've tried to make this point that confrontation isn't a tone any more than kindness is a tone. Right? And I've used that analogy many times of my youngest daughter, Zoe, when she played in the parking lot that one time at the grocery store and I had to yank her by her hoodie really hard to stop her from getting hit by a car. And I said, don't ever do that again. And if you didn't see the action I committed before that and only saw me talking to my little 4-year-old daughter like that, you'd be calling Child Protective Services if you didn't know the context of that statement, right? Okay, but but was it kind of me to use the initiative and my righteous indignation to grab and yank her from a moving car that could have maybe even killed her? Was that the kind thing to do?
Yes.
Even though my tone was bad? Right. So I bring that up because it flips the other way too, guys. It works the other way too. I'm not here trying to get all the guys to sound like me. I got my own issues, man. What Tony Dungy is doing in a very respectable tone is boot to the throat level confrontation. Okay? What Dungy is doing is just punching the spirit of the age right in the throat. Right in the throat. Totally different tone than how we often communicate between the three of us on our show, especially yours truly. But it is every bit as confrontational nevertheless. Confrontation is not a tone. Masculinity is not a series of characteristics, but attributes. It's not, hey, I can swing a hammer and I've got more things I know how to do with a wrench than MacGyver. It can be that. It can also be, watch me write, take down your code and write a new code in 5 minutes flat in between sips of my Starbucks cup. It could be that too, okay? It's not characteristics, it's attributes. Instincts. And so Tony Dungy standing up there, again, very welcoming, very discreet and respectable. But he is standing up there in that exact same tone and saying, it is bad to murder baby humans. Do not get hung up on the manner of speech. Do not get hung up on that. Get hung up on the actual speech. There's 66 books of the Bible. Can we find books where when the Lord speaks, it is a tone that is conciliatory? Yes. Can we find verses when the Lord speaks, it is a tone of, oh snap? Yes. So which is it then? Yes. It's not a tone. Kindness isn't a tone. Being loving isn't a tone. It can be, but it's not exclusively so. And being confrontational, not a tone. It can be, but it's not exclusively so. Tony Dungy's tone, way different than mine, but he is also, by the way, confronting the system at a level way beyond what I'm capable of doing with his own manner of doing things. But it's every bit as confrontational as my own. I think it's important, Aaron, to make that point both ways. Because there's going to be guys in this audience, you're quieter, you're nicer, and I don't mean that in a soft way. You're just a kinder person. You grew up with a better dad than I do. It's easier for you to show empathy than it is for someone who's emotionally stunted like me. Okay? So that doesn't mean that you're weak. They're not the same thing either way.
I think a good example, maybe even a great example of this, is the guy who's running for vice president right now. I want to say this in the context of, and I'm guilty of this, or I struggle with this as much as the next person, but you have to you have to put yourself in the shoes of where you were, where this country was, where the Republican Party was 10 or 15 years ago. J.D. Vance is a walking, talking confrontation of everything that in both parties, the elites of both parties, have tried to foist upon the American people for a generation, if not more than that. The things that he was talking about in that clip, the interplay between unchecked immigration, globalism, and the American family, that is the definition of confrontation, but he wasn't a douche about it. He didn't need to be. He was in a friendly audience, but even at the debate stage, you saw that as well. Mm-hmm. That was a huge confrontation of worldviews. And the one moment in the debate that we were all unanimously disappointed was when he was not confrontational, and that was the issue that we're talking about now with Tony Dungy and baby killing. But otherwise, J.D. Vance has done this to a T. He's not a douche about it. He's not screaming and yelling about it. He's just laying out the facts unabashedly and uncompromisingly. And I hope that translates into governance if he and the guy at the top of the ticket, Donald Trump, are elected on Tuesday.
Amen.
You just have to have the courage. That's all. That's really all that it takes. You don't have to yell and scream. You just have to have the courage to say simple truths like you shouldn't murder your unborn children. It's not right for companies to just, it's not right to have an unchecked, unfettered, permanent subclass of serfs in this country destroying the American class. That's just not right. Mm-hmm. Nope. Really, what Republican presidential candidate has had the balls to say that and connect those dots the way that J.D. Vance has? It's not very many. You give a wink and a nod here and there with a Romney or McCain at best. But really, we are in a different place now. So all that it takes, the courage to say simple truths and not care what Karen with the blue hair has to say about it.
That's kind of the irony of the New York Times hit piece where they, went after the group of us in particular, me, Poole, Knowles, Tucker, Giuliani, who am I forgetting? Oh, Shapiro. Okay. The irony but from just for me as an individual standpoint is in the decade in the decade since they sent a reporter out here to profile me for the New York Times Sunday magazine and wrote a pretty positive feature to now, I'm on their most wanted sign. The irony of that is in the last decade on a couple of issues, my worldview has evolved closer to where traditionally the viewpoints of the people who read the New York Times are at. They're just not there anymore. Like for foreign policy is an example. I grew up a jingoistic, we're America bitch, kid of the 80s. And now I'm like, unless it's Red Dawn and they're dropping soldiers, on the school parking lot, my answer to war is no. That's actually what the people who read the New York Times when I was growing up, Aaron, that was their viewpoint of foreign policy.
Yeah.
Big Pharma would be another one. I mean, my views on Big Pharma are way closer, after what I witnessed during COVID and have continued to witness, way closer to what a lifelong liberal like RFK Jr., where he is at.
It is fascinating.
Okay?
Yeah.
And what people who read the New York Times when I was growing up, and until basically Donald Trump came down the escalator, these were the views on war and Big Pharma that people that read the New York Times had. I actually have views closer to them on those things now than I do the traditional right-wing position on those things. I love Mark Levin to death. All right. I mean, literally without Mark Levin's success at CRTV, you and I don't have our jobs that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's how we got to. Todd talks about being on my coattails. We rode Mark Levin's coattails in the digital space to get here to the Blaze so we can now ride Glenn Beck's. All right. Everybody's riding a coattail around here. Everybody is. All right. But I love Mark, but I vehemently disagree with him on Ukraine. I just do. I'm much more in the Tucker camp on that. And so what's funny is on a couple of their signature issues, I've actually come to see their side, or at least what used to be their side of the issue. And for that, I don't get a newfound respect. I'm even worse than I used to. Yeah. Now that I'm like, on a couple of these things, I've taken a look at it. I've lived some life experience. That Iraq thing was a mother bleeping disaster, okay, of epic, proportions. And Big Pharma just tried to kill us all. So on second thought, maybe you guys had some points in the 80s and 90s when I was laughing at you, right?
Well, okay. You don't have to go to the 80s and 90s. Go to 2015 and 2016.
Correct.
Bernie Sanders correctly diagnosed the problem with big corporations and big government. His solutions was more government. He said this government created this problem. The solution is more government. But things like that. Did you see the Did you see the Bulwark? The answer is always no. But
yes.
The cast at the Bulwark were bragging about how
this clip I have seen saying that the neocons have taken over the
Democratic Party.
Yeah, and then they scolded each other for saying it out loud. They're not supposed to do that. Yes. Yeah. Were they trolling us? That's the only reason I didn't make a big deal out of it. You think they were trolling us?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. But I just wanted to open myself up to the possibility that was a troll. Because it does seem as if, look at the Bush women are all for Kamala. It does seem as if the Democratic Party on some of these signature issues is where the Republican Party was 20 years ago. And then since it's pretty obvious that the Republican Party wasn't really serious about our culture war issues all those times, people that we were told as Christians we had to vote for them, and I was telling people, like your parents, they had to vote for them too. Yeah. Maybe one of the smartest analogies I've ever made is comparing politics to pro wrestling, because what is pro wrestling? People say pro wrestling is fake. It is not fake. I don't care how many times you've rehearsed it. A 300-pound man jumping off a 10, 12, 15-foot top buckle and dropping all of that force and momentum of his leg down over the top of your sternum. You're not going out and doing that for fun on a Friday night. I don't care how many times you've rehearsed how to not break your sternum or your breastplate doing that, in minor league wrestling. At no point does that actually feel good. At no point does it tickle. It's not that wrestling is fake. It's that it's scripted. It's not that it's fake. See my point, Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
So the policies that they make are very real. But look how easy these people can just flip sides. The New York Times has gone from we need government to defend us against corporations to we literally just rip and read Pfizer ads and turn them into in press releases without any investigative skepticism whatsoever, and they're now front page stories. It's not that it's fake, it's that it's scripted. Jason says, I went on a bus tour from Boston to Kansas City back in July. Both our bus driver and his girlfriend work for the Amish. Now, I want to say this. I could have done an entire Feedback Friday, maybe 2 weeks worth, just on emails I've received and messages about the Amish in the last 2 weeks since we brought up.
That's interesting.
Eli B. Flippin. The amount of opinions in this audience, man, on the Amish vote is real and spectacular. The amount of people who have like expert, subject matter expert level of eyewitness accounts of the Amish in the Rust Belt states blew me away. Okay. Maybe that's some live remote possibility that we have in the future.
There you go.
Live from an Amish village in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Anyway, Jason writes, I went on a bus tour from Boston to Kansas City back in July. Both our bus driver and his girlfriend work for the Amish. We toured the Amish country for a week. And they told us back then that there was a big uprising of Amish that was going to be voting in this election due to the raids on Amish farms about things like raw milk and then the push on them during COVID. P.S. I love that he adds this. P.S. I also became addicted to their peanut butter cream spread on rolls. It's worse than crack. Semper Fi, Jason. So it's not just dudes like me in the suburbs who have the sweet tooth. Even the Marine here can't get enough of the peanut butter cream roll spread from the Amish country. So
I think Amos Miller, I think that's the name of the farmer out in Lancaster who's had his operation raided by various government, both at the state and federal level. That's one of the big stories. But I know there's a lot of attention on elements like that, and I still need to see it with my own eyes. I mean, how does this compare to previous elections? Have you gotten inundated with various demographics like this?
I have files going back to 1976 of demographic election data. I must confess, the one subset I have none for is the Amish vote. I don't have a trend line for the Amish vote, man. I'm sorry, I don't have that one.
Better late than never.
So what better time to have one than right now? Okay? Listen, if the Amish can deliver us Pennsylvania, then honestly, it doesn't matter what happens in Michigan and Wisconsin. Nope. They can cheat their asses off, and we'll deal with that later on. Okay? So, and I think we should consider, if the Amish deliver for us the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, maybe we come in here, man, all three of us, one day, and we dress up like Eli B. Flippin. We honor our Amish brothers.
We should have the Amish cater a
great
meal for us.
Great idea.
They can do tacos.
We have, because we've got Mennonites here, like at Manna colonies, right?
Oh, I grew up in southern Iowa, in a community, a lot of Amish down in southern Iowa.
And yes, I know there's separate denominations. Yes. I know that, but what I mean is that sort of Anabaptist, largely divorced from modernization. Yep. I don't mean to say you guys all look alike. That's not what I'm saying. But we would have some of those connections in Iowa to maybe have somebody come in and bring us some stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right. I liked this observation from Michael Curtis quite a bit. He writes, too many of our modern churches are focused on the evacuation plan instead of the redemption plan. If the church does not get off its backside and get involved, God will not hold us blameless. He said, preach the gospel and make disciples. You can't do that if you're not engaged. It's a shame that God has to raise up the Trumps of the world to do the church's job. Our motto should be to get into the fight. I thought that was very good.
I thought what was really good was what Matt Meehan, maybe I misunderstood this, what Matt Meehan said yesterday. Don't call this a post-Christian nation. Call it a pre-Christian nation.
Yeah.
Now that's... Again, white pilling, maybe a little bit of Pollyanna.
2 days. That's another one from you.
I just think you have to, if we're really serious about this, and I don't care what your eschatology is, If you're post and we're building and building and building, post-millennial, and we're building and building and building until every single tribe and nation has access to the gospel, or whether you're pre-mill, which is things are going to get worse. If you're in the latter camp, then you should be even more engaged, even more invested in building God's kingdom on earth and for eternity as well. So regardless of where you say, there has to be a mindset switch amongst those of us who actually stand for the good, true, and beautiful, no matter where you stand on there, where you stand on that spectrum. If you stand for the good, true, and beautiful, if you believe that Jesus is real and he is Lord now, you have to change your mindset. And that means getting out of the paradigm of every 4 years it's life or death. It means that you have to see this as a long, long journey in this country for this country. Now, this might be, we are on the brink on this election. I don't think that changes that calculus at all. But the doomerism of it's always going to get worse, the doomerism of if we don't get this right every 4 years, everything is lost. You have to change your mindset to saying, no, we're not a post-Christian nation. There's nothing we can do about it. We're a pre-Christian nation, and we have to do something about it right now. So I think that mindset switch, because if this country is going to be saved, it's going to be saved maybe at best in my grandchildren's, if I am lucky enough to have grandchildren, my grandchildren's end of their lifetimes. That's how you have to think. That's how the left thought about it. Gramsci's march through the institutions, that didn't just happen in 2008. It didn't. No. Those generations of building and building
and
building
those letters in the 1930s.
On their sides. Yeah. You have to get into the long game picture of this. And that's going to be battles won, battles lost, maybe more lost than won in the short term. But in terms of actually marching through the institutions once more, it has to be a long game. And I think the letter writer kind of invokes that, changing the mindset that you have. And that's something that I struggle with as well, especially when you do this on a day in, a day out basis.
Aaron out here dropping 2 white pills in one segment like he's a dad hopeful for his kid's future or something. All right? How about them apples? We want to make you hopeful. If you are struggling with chronic pain, check out our friends at Relief Factor. It's the drug-free supplement created by physicians who can prescribe drugs, who were tired of using drugs to mask the pain. They wanted to create a supplement, something drug-free, that could potentially get rid of that which is causing your pain in the first place. That something is Relief Factor. You can try it for 3 weeks. See if you don't see a difference in your pain level in 3 weeks or less. It'll cost you just $20 to find out. Over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start at Relief Factor. 70% of them saw such great results, they've stuck with the product long term. So why not give that a shot? Go after that inflammation in your joints that's the cause of your chronic pain with our friends at Relief Factor. Try the 3-week quick start, just $20 right now at relieffactor.com. Again, head over there just for $20, the 3-week quick start at relieffactor.com. More Feedback Friday here next. We talk about the need for a parallel economy in America, and it's coming. It's just not here yet. One place where it is here right now is when it comes to one device we all need access to thrive in modern America. That's our mobile phone. You can make the switch now to America's only American mobile phone provider. You don't have to directly give money anymore to people who hate you, and they've got multiple networks within their main network there at Patriot Mobile. And anytime you want to switch to one of those multiple networks, they'll help you to do that for free by being a member. You can switch to become a member today, and if you do, they'll give you 30 days for free, a free month of service to get you started if you use my name, Steve, as your promo code there at patriotmobile.com/Steve. So same coverage, same values, though, too. And an even better customer service team, a U.S.-based customer service team whom you can actually understand. And they'll customize it for your family. People can keep the numbers, switch numbers, keep the phones, upgrade the phones, whatever you want to do. Just use the promo code. If you do, use the promo code Steve for the free month of service at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Steve. All right, let's get back to some Feedback Friday. This is from Adam, who says, I am in Missouri attending a church that has not placed a sign against our proposed amendment for abortion and LGBTQFU activities. Our founding semi-retired pastor gave the sermon yesterday from Philippians, where Paul is asked about the church pastors who are not of good character, but not heretics. Paul's message was, let them preach and to not be obsessed about the issues we cannot control. Our minister then talked about not allowing our obsession with politics to lose us a convert. His position seems to be that it's not the church's job to campaign in a political race. The church's job is to create enough Christians that such campaigning is irrelevant. He is personally hair on fire against baby killing, but he believes that his talking on the issue would make it impossible to draw in the people who need us the most. This seems to be very in line with apostles, not assassins, but wisdom is found in a multitude of counsel, and I seek your perspective. My perspective is, Adam, I'd never go back to that church.
Correct.
I'd never go back. Nope, would never go back. Let's take this out of the context of a political issue and put it in another one. What would your pastor say, Adam, if a woman took an abortion pill right there in his parking lot? I'm asking. And for all of the Adams in this audience that go to these kinds of churches, and I know sadly there's lots of you because there's lots of these kinds of churches, I know. I also went to them. And I finally just said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. So I don't. Now, I'm not a cessationist, but I wouldn't say I was necessarily a Pentecostal before going to a Pentecostal church either. All right? So there are some things that I'm still like okay. You know, at times my teeth are on edge. I'm like, okay. Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah. But at this stage of life, you know what I need? More than for my teeth not to be on edge and completely comfortable with every jot and tittle of ecclesiastic indulgence and preference. I need a pastor of courage that when your life goes bad, when the world around you goes bad, you think you can call him. In fact, let me say that to everyone in this audience. Do you go to a church right now? If your wife left you, if your husband left you, do you think you could call that pastor? Think they go to war for you? They try to take your job away for your faith. Do you have a pastor that you should call? Have that, he'd support you, be there for you? That one gif where the black guy's holding the red Solo cup. Have you seen that one? And he's like,
oh,
you know, you've seen that one? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a lot. I'm sensing over the podcast waves and the video waves, I'm sensing a lot of that within our audience right now, Aaron. You know why? Because I would have had those reactions at different points as a believer too. So before we even get to, do you think my pastor could, if I'm in a state where we're trying to kill every baby that the devil can get his hands on, before we even ask him to maybe do his job where that is concerned, how about doing his job where you are concerned? Let's make it even more personal. If you're thinking of leaving your husband, if you're thinking of leaving your wife, do you have a pastor you would call to say, hey man, I'm in a bad place right now. I'm in a dark place. I need to get out. Do you? See, I think that I now do. So I'm going to tolerate some of the other things that put my teeth on edge, that are not the way I would do things. Maybe not even the way I'd recommend things get done if somebody asked. But those other things I can negotiate. What I need and what is a necessity and a requirement is I need a man who knows the Word of God and the courage to wield it as the ultimate weapon, the double-edged sword that it is, in all the situations I just mentioned. So let me ask again, Adam. Planned Parenthood parks a truck right there in your parking lot. Women come out, start taking abortion pills right there in the parking lot. Should pastor say anything? would he not confront out of fear of losing a single convert? He would just let a murder take place right there. Because I don't want to lose anybody, so we'll just let murder. The Bible does not say, here are 7 things the Lord hates. Here's six the Lord hates, I should say. And the very first one is hands that shed innocent blood. No, that doesn't say that. So we're just going to shed that innocent blood right there. We're just going to take an abortion pill right there. Had it mailed to him. Just going to drop that. And if you think what I'm making is extreme, they have done this at events and rallies where these women have taken these pills in public places. So he says nothing. Give you another one. Standing right outside the church. Everyone can look out the windows and see. Half-naked man. Dressed up like a woman. In fact, let's make it a very specific location. How about the windows outside the children's ministry? Half-naked man dressed up like a woman, and right there in the windows outside the children's ministry, twerking for the kids. Got nothing? Nothing. Don't want to lose any converts, after all. So we got nothing? We have nothing. We have nothing? I mean, if the standard is we're not going to preach on bad things out of fear of losing people, then the standard then becomes we're not going to preach on bad things at all. There is no topic of sin you could not address that it would not risk offending someone because we are all sinners. So again, this is where the paradigm now is, I love my neighbor as I love myself is now the main commandment, and God has to, and loving him with all my heart, soul, strength, and mind, that has to come next. Jesus let people reject him. Never chased after a single one of them in any of the 4 Gospels. He chases after no one that's rejected him, not one time. What he does do, though, is continually challenge his people that are already claiming to be believers. He lets the unbelievers go. They will receive their reward in full. Instead, he spends way more time wooing and challenging those who say they're committed. This is not a biblical paradigm. This is a corporation. And these are not sinners in need of salvation. They're customers in need of appreciation. This is how businesses behave. Where the customer's always right till you don't want them to be a customer anymore. The church operates from, you're always wrong, until you agree that God is always right. Totally different premise. Somehow, some way, Adam, pastors like yours were gifted the opportunity of taxpayer-subsidized nonprofit status cowardice. Because the 2,000 years before we had pastors like yours, we didn't have pastors like that. And somehow they were able to build the Church of Jesus Christ and survive. And billions still joined, billions of souls still lined up and said yes to Jesus nevertheless. This model of ministry is not biblical. It's corporate. It is not the biblical model. It is not. If the standard is we will not speak out on things for fear of offending, then we will speak out on nothing. Nothing. Furthermore, it is terrible for the church to have matters of existential, moral, cosmic importance addressed in a culture, the things the Word of God specifically addresses, and to let every major institution in the culture have a say in the arena of ideas about that kind of an issue, except the one institution that God gave the earth to have the ultimate say on said issue. So yes, I would leave and never come back unless that pastor called me and repented. Thank you for pointing out I'm a coward. He is. He's a coward. Send him my way. He can call me on the phone. I'll give you my number. I'm happy to tell him to his face. This is not a biblical model. It is not. In heaven, your pastor can go to the prophet Isaiah and say, you know, you didn't have to get sawed in half by Manasseh if you just would have stopped addressing things from the government. If you just stopped defending the government, you wouldn't have had to get sawed in half. You could have lived a nice life in the suburbs like me. Why would you want to threaten your nonprofit status there in 7th century BC Israel? Let alone get sawed in half. Get out of here. I'm out of patience with all of this, all of it. Apostles and not assassins is not cowards versus conviction. It's a motivation. An apostle is someone who confronts evil with the intent of saving people from it. Like when Paul says to Simon Bar-Jonah, or Bar-Jesus, the sorcerer, you, sir, in front of all the people he's trying to save, you, sir, are a son of the devil. Right to his face in public. Nero did not behead Paul because he didn't take a stand, but because that's all he did. That's all he did. All the time. No, apostles and not assassins is, do I want to forget that therefore by the grace of God go I? That I almost did, that I'll do it again, that I will succumb to the same sins I'm calling out without humility, without repentance in my life, and a recognition ultimately that it is not I who live, but the hope of glory, Christ who lives in me. That's what that means. It does not mean cowardice. And cowards are thrown into the lake of fire first if you go back and read Revelation at the end. I've had it. I've had enough. I wasn't very patient with this to begin with, but I'm completely out of it. And I'm out of it because those of you going to those kinds of churches, and I'm sorry that there's so many of them, that's many of you, you deserve better. God did not save you for such mediocrity. The pastor deserves better. Maybe he wants to be the next Creflo Dollar, Benny Hinn, Rick Warren. More than likely he doesn't. More than likely he got into this thinking, I cannot wait. He didn't show up the first day at seminary thinking, I wonder, if I could get on Joel Osteen's podcast. He probably showed up first day of seminary thinking, I'm the guy that's going to make hell sweat for the next 50 years. Somewhere along the line, he lost his way. He deserves better too. The bigotry of low expectations. And then finally, this entire culture, you want to love your neighbors, you love him because you love yourself. Your neighbor, your unsaved, bound for hell, wanting it, desiring it neighbor, they deserve better too. They deserve it so much that Jesus died for them to have it. But to embrace it means they have to leave their current evil behind. How will they leave their current evil behind if we don't call out what's evil? This is nothing more than self-imposed spiritual bigotry of low expectations, if not outright demonically oppressive cowardice. Aaron, I'll give you the last word.
Man, you stole the words out of my mouth if I had an opportunity to chime in, and that's absolutely right. There is no other group in this country that suffers from the soft bigotry of low expectations than pastors. Now, I say this as somebody who has a high regard to faithful pastors and ministers who really does not envy them on any level, because when they go in the sanctuary every Sunday morning, that person's cheated on their wife. That lady over there gossiped about me the other day. That person, that kid down there is just an absolute menace, and he's they walk in there with the burdens of a lot of people on their shoulders. And I'm talking about some of the good ones as well. So I say that with somebody with a high regard for pastors, knowing that there are still probably in this country thousands of pastors out there who are anonymous in terms of nobody knows their name, nobody's heard of where they're from, who are faithfully preaching the word of God, who are faithfully just calling out and confronting their own people to repent of their sin, who are serving in the community and being a light and salt and light in their own community. I'm sure there are still a lot of those pastors out there, but they are nowhere close to the median pastor in the United States. The median pastor in the United States, whether or not they preach really well, whether or not they have all the accoutrements or none of them, the median pastor in this United States is functionally, or at least unabashed, or in some cases unabashedly cowardice. Just unabashed cowards. And it's, for one reason or the other, are they that way because the culture, that's what they want from their churches if they're going to church at all? Probably. Are they that way because their people, the people who know better, aren't expecting them to be anything else than that? Probably. Those things can be true at the same time. But which part of that equation do you have dominion over? It's the latter part. Mm-hmm. You need to expect more from your pastors. This is what Todd says. It's because people want that from their pastors. They don't want somebody who's going to be confrontational with them, who's going to be confrontational with the world. But if you know better, it's time to start expecting better.
Amen. Hope you guys have a better weekend than the last one even. We'll be back on Monday. I'll be in Dallas. Todd and Aaron will be here. But until then, Romans 8:28.